As a former NASA rocket scientist who started her degrees with pre-algebra in a community college at the age of 18, I've always been passionate about making STEM education accessible. After graduation, I moved here, and I spent 6 years in Silicon Valley working for NASA. Some of you who know me know that I was invested in the time at sitting on boards and inviting students in to see what we did in aerospace at NASA. But after 6 years, I wanted equity, not just equality. And so I left NASA and I founded my first company called STEM Board. I wanted a company that believed in diversity of thought and in inclusion from the very first hire. The company, which is a 7-figure business without any outside capital and soon to be 8, started with my first hire, who's here today, Dr. Jarvis Sulzer from the Level Playing Field Institute. And we built over the past years, we built, brick by brick, not only a national, but an international STEM program. I took my engineers, my scientists, and my margin, and I invested it in content and curriculum. We are the STEM content provider for Inroads. We are the STEM content provider for many organizations that you see and you know, and some of you even may have taken training from, including the Executive Leadership Council. Today, I'm elated because while the United States was figuring out how to grapple the impact of COVID, we took that STEM content and curriculum and we created a self-paced coding kit, complete with culturally relevant role models and aligned to national learning standards. And we sold over 5,000 of those kits in 10 countries in a little over a year. Today, Lingo, the self-paced immersive coding kit that exposes students to hardware and software fundamentals, can be bought in Amazon, it can be bought in Target, it can be found in Walmart. And more importantly, I'm delighted to announce that we're closing our seed round, and I, as a founder, have raised over $1.6 million to globally, rapidly scale the impact of Lingo. And so I'm excited to be here today, finishing what started in the Bay so long ago. My name is Aisha Bell. I'm the founder and CEO of STEM Board, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lingo. I am a culture shifter, and I'm excited to create a world where there are so many decision makers of color in the room, because we have invested in technology that represents us and founders like me. Thank you.
That's no pressure. I went to Cal State Northridge. We'll start there. That's right. My name is Phaedra, and I grew up in a small town in California, a community where a lot of people were struggling. My mom was a waitress at a place called Bill's Place in San Francisco, and she eventually went back to school and got a union job. And I'll never forget the day that she got that job, because I went from free lunch to reduced lunch, which means I used to stand in the line where you didn't have to give your name, and then all of a sudden I stood in the line where you had to pay 40 cents. And what I realized is standing in the line where people paid, it released a sense of shame that I'd been holding that I didn't realize I held. And it is in that moment that I knew I wanted to spend my life making sure that kids and families didn't have to live with shame because of poverty. I wanted to create a world where, in fact, people in my community were treated with the respect and dignity that they deserved. Now, there aren't a lot of profitable, scalable companies building products for poor people without being exploitive or predatory. So I spent a lot of time learning. I managed prints. I worked at a company called Honor, and I ran revenue. I worked in the labor movement, and I wanted to figure out what was the model for change in a capitalist society. And I realized for me, it was founding a company. We've raised about $50 million, and Promise helps working people tackle their government debt and help them access aid. Because see, if you're middle class, you can get a Peloton with 0 interest. You get it now and you pay for it later. But if you're poor and you want to pay a parking ticket or your water bill, you have to take time off work, you have to go into an office, you have to pay for parking, you have to stand before someone and prove that you're poor, show your taxes, and put 50% down and pay interest, all for the privilege of paying the government back. So that is a world in which we refuse to accept. So we build software that assumes that people don't want their water shut off. We assume that people don't want to go to jail and miss a payment. We assume that people, in fact, have every intent to pay, but the nature in which people are paid has changed, and what is missing is inherent dignity and ease in payments for people that need it the most. We leverage the power of technology and innovation to help people succeed rather than punishing them for a lack of resources. It's why we're going all across the country and we have a 93% repayment rate, because my name is Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Promise, and I'm a culture shifter.
4 months ago, I left my job as a software engineer, where I earned more last year in income than I had during the first 9 years of my career. Now, I'm taking a step out on faith to change the game for the next generation of underrepresented talent. For the past 8 years, I've been writing articles and filming YouTube videos to help people all over the world understand technical interviewing and how to operate in the tech space. A viral documentary about my journey from the hood as a physical and sexual abuse survivor, turned foster kid, turned programmer, saw me become a software engineer at one of the most sought-after tech employers in the world. That documentary put me on the map in 2018. That was also the same year that I started my consulting firm. And I started that firm to honor the legacy of my Black ancestors who were innovators during times where there weren't diversity and inclusion programs. These are people like Garrett A. Morgan and Louis H. Latimer, who invented things like the gas mask apparatus, the three-way traffic signal, and a better filament for the light bulb. These were people who innovated during the eras of Jim Crow, slavery, and the mass lynching of Black people. And this is the legacy in which I now stand. My goal, my contribution to this legacy, is to see not only underrepresented people get into tech, but also to prepare companies so that they can receive this talent. My goal is to ensure that the next generation of innovators come from places like Harlem, the South Side of Chicago, Detroit, Compton, Inglewood, Linwood, Ghana, Nigeria, and all places where people are overlooked, underserved, and marginalized. I am the founder of Morgan Latimer Consulting. I am senior advisor to the Brilliant Black Minds program at Carrot. From Compton to Google and beyond, I am Anthony D. Mays, and I am a culture shifter.
There's a huge amount of talent in this room, and it is just amazing to be here. So thank you for having me. The last 2 years of the pandemic have awakened the world to the inequities in health, not just here in the US, but around the globe. Never in my life have I felt more called to a moment than I do now. I can't believe that I'm here, and this is such an honor. I am not an activist. I don't stand on tables. I don't lead marches. But my entire career in medicine has been about activism. See, I became a doctor because I knew that the healthcare system was broken, and it was breaking communities and families like mine. I spent over 20 years in academic medicine, publishing articles, writing grants, doing presentations about communication and health disparities. Until one day, a patient, or really a parent, did something that I didn't know at the moment would change the trajectory of my career. She walked into my clinic and she opened a flip phone. And she showed me a picture of a rash that had been on her child the night before, but that had disappeared. And it led me on a path to advocate for the marginalized communities that I served who were dependent on a healthcare system that was not built for them. And I believed that technology would transform healthcare. And I believed that it had the potential to allow us to leapfrog addressing health disparities that my patients were experiencing. It takes on average 17 years for an article to get from a medical journal into practice. When we have people dying every day, that is too long. So I left academic medicine, and I left my focus on health equity, and I joined a growth and scale startup. It was like drinking from a fire hose, and I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot. And what I learned is that every experience takes you towards your purpose. And I knew I had to get back to health equity. It has been 20 years since the landmark report, Unequal Treatment, proved to us that structural racism and institutional and individual bias lead to health disparities in our health system. That has to end. I joined Google in the midst of the pandemic with a mandate to build health equity into our mission to help billions of people be healthier. I am laser focused on creating a playbook that allows us to do health equity at scale across the globe. I am building for the tomorrow that I want to see. My name is Dr. Ivor Braden Horn. I am the first Director of Health Equity at Google, and I am a culture shifter.